I'm Heather from booktubes, and today is royalty romance recommendations. This is something that I really could not care less about in contemporary, but absolutely love in fantasy paranormal. So all of these are really fantasy books. So if that doesn't interest you, bye. Thank you for coming this far. But yeah, they're really all fantasy books, but with a royal main character, love interest, something in there. My first one is my favorite fantasy of the moment. It's my favorite book of the year so far, and it's A Heart of Blood and Ashes, which is The Gathering of Dragons #1 by Milla, Vane. In this book, we have a princess who has been abused and locked up in her own palace for most of her life. Her father, the king, is not the rightful ruler. She is the rightful ruler. It is a maternal, that's not the word I want. Matriarchy? Yeah, it's matriarchy. So the crown should have gone from her mother to her. Most of the people in her kingdom aren't even aware that the princess is alive. And her father's awful. You are rooting for his death. He is an awful person, as are her brothers. And so she's disabled and also malnourished and stuff from being in this tower. She is incredibly smart. I love her so much. And then we have a prince or general. He's going to be the warlord kind of his, not just his tribe, but like all the tribes people, if that makes sense. He was the general, but then his parents were murdered, and why can I not think of words? The group of people who formed an alliance with all the different countries. They basically said, hey, we decided that was self-defense. If you retaliate, you will be wiped off the face of the earth. And it was by her father. He was the one that killed his parents, so he decides that he's going to take her for revenge, and she very cleverly is just like, hey, literally, if you kill me, it's not going to do anything to my dad. The only way to make my dad hurt is to take the kingdom from him, and for that you need me. So they go on a journey, and he very much doesn't trust her. It's so good. It's steamy. It's romance focused with a real fleshed out fantasy world. It's just all the things that I wanted, and I loved it. Next is The Queen's Line, which is Inheritance of Hunger #1 by Kathryn. This is her fantasy reverse harem series, and we have a princess who they have, again, kind of a matriarchy, and they have a magic that is part of the royal family, and it is basically a sex magic, an insatiable appetite, and that creates magic and puts magic back into the land. But she thinks that she's broken because she doesn't have it, and honestly it's kind of because she's demisexual. She really doesn't feel sexual attraction for people that she doesn't already know and like, and feel attracted to more than just their bodies. So she is forced to pick guys anyways, and then her grandmother figures out that she doesn't have the magic, and she sends her north, and there she's trying to balance all these guys. She's finding that she actually is attracted to them and does have the magic after she gets to know them. She's also learning that all of the political situation in the country is not what she's been taught her whole life, and she wants to be a good ruler. And I really enjoyed the balance between the reverse harem sexy times happening all over the place and the actual court intrigue and politics and the ruling of a kingdom. I really liked it all, plus the magic was interesting as well. Then I have Radiance by Draven. This is a beloved fantasy book, which is probably one of the best, hands down, friends to lovers I've ever read. It is a marriage of convenience between a human and a species who live at night. They have gray skin, they have black eyes, and he is very handsome for his people. She is very beautiful for her people, but they view each other as hideous, and it's a marriage of convenience. And I love it because it's exactly what I want from a marriage of convenience, where it's like, okay, you are going to spend the rest of your life with this person. Let's try and make it work on some level right from the beginning. And they do, and they're definitely just friends. They really don't feel any attraction to each other at all. And they take their time, and they do eventually fall in love. And she's having to get used to being nocturnal, and all of the foods are different, and everything is difficult for her. And it's just so cute. I would love to do a reread because I haven't read it for years, but it is just a phenomenal, homey, cozy little royal fantasy book. It's just so good. If you're all about the intrigue and the political machinations, then maybe this isn't the one for you because this is less focused on that. But if you want it on the couple, it's just beautiful. Next, I have two by Kati Wilde. The first one is Evil Twin. This is a novella, and we have this evil twin. He's been told he's the evil twin because his parents specifically asked him not to kill his brother because his brother is a dimwit. We don't like him. He's also just like the worst. But his brother is king because he's the older twin, and he is the general. So a princess has come to marry his brother, and so he has a plan. He's going to seduce the princess, sleep with her. The royal family will walk in while they are banging, and then his brother won't want the bride anymore, and he'll be able to go and rule her kingdom. And his plot works perfectly well. It's them trying to make it work, and there's some really good steamy scenes, some humor, I love it. I love it all. It's so good. I wish I could tell you all the spoilers, but I'm not going to, but it's so good. And then also by Kati Wilde, I have the Midwinter Mail Order Bride. I read this over a year ago, something like that, because of the cover. I was like, that cover is gorgeous. I love it. I want to read it. And I was so pleasantly surprised. I absolutely adored it. So she has been sent to be this conqueror's bride, and he wasn't aware that his counselors were looking for a bride, and she's the only one that responded. But she had been drugged to make her more docile on the journey, and so when they meet, she's coming out of the drugs, but she's still under the effects, and so she tells him some truths that maybe she wouldn't have necessarily told him. So when he finds out that she doesn't want to be married to him, first of all, he sees her and falls in love. But she said she didn't want to marry him, and he wants a bride that wants him. So he's like, all right, then I'm going to take you back to your kingdom. And they are on a journey together, and it's the two of them, but they obviously fall for each other, and it's so good. It's so good. Especially if you love a meet cute where she's threatening to kill him the second she lays eyes on him. It's so good. I just absolutely adored it, fell in love with Kati Wilde's writing. And yeah, highly recommend her if you want fantasy romance, especially funny, lighter, quicker ones. Lastly, I'm taking this moment to talk about one of my favorite series. That is The Thief by Megan Whalen Turner. Is the first in the Queen's Thief series. And this is a YA fantasy. There is no banging. There is a romance plot, although it really doesn't happen in the first book. And in the first book, kind of introduced to some royal characters, but it's not so much in the first book, but quite a bit of the series follows royalty because it follows more than one character. It follows a lot of things, okay? I love this series. Don't DNF the book. Don't DNF it because the reveals are at the end and you see that all these things that you thought you knew were not quite what they seemed. And so we're following a journey, a little group. They are off to try and steal an impossible thing, and for that they need a master thief, and this guy was in prison bragging about how he could steal anything, and so he's taken along, and he's young. There's a couple other young boys and then a couple of men, but it's their journey. It's really just the journey. Nothing's happening. Again, the end, you get some reveals that really make it worth it. But it's a slow book that it has very dry humor and just some subtle things, and I just love it. I love it so much. The second and third book are a little bit more romance heavy and also more royal heavy, and I love them. You should read them. You should read them for me. You should do it. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. Those are some of my royal recommendations. And do you like contemporary royal books? Do you prefer them in fantasy or paranormal? I've always preferred them in historical settings, kind of I like, but all of the real life people didn't end happily ever after. But the fantasy, I've just always been into books with royalty in them, and it's just interesting to me how power can be such a trap. Yeah, there you go. Those are some recommendations. Thanks for watching. Bye!